He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi horror guy. Yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.
And 3, 2, 1. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, the Lo-Fi Horror Guy, and welcome to another episode. I believe episode 12 of the Lo-Fi Horror Guys Growing on You Live. Today I'm going to have on a really, really cool guest. I can't wait to talk to him. He is the director of Beyond the Gates, co-writer of Beyond the Gates as well. Hey, man!
Hey,
What's
how's
going
it going?
on? Good. How are you?
I'm good. Just another fine Sunday morning in the bank. I like that Halloween 2 poster you got there.
Thanks. It's my figure. I've got the Michael Myers figure there.
Ah,
But
very
I hang up
nice.
the boxes. I've got that and Pennywise and Jason Lives up there. A couple of
All
things, you know?
all good choices.
Yeah. All right. So now, I don't know if you've ever seen the show, but basically, just starting out, we do a couple little icebreaker questions and then some more individualized stuff toward you and your craft. And then we'll have a finale segment that I created just for you, Jackson.
Oh, right on. I'll take
Yeah.
that.
All right, sweet. All right, if you're ready, man, we're going to get going. We're going to start out. I'm just going to ask off the top of your head, what are 3 of your favorite horror movies?
Um, hmm. Phantasm for sure.
Ooh,
Probably The Gate and
okay.
let me think of an oddball one. Maybe Psycho, I guess. I don't know.
Ooh, okay.
That had a pretty big impact on me.
Sure. Okay. And that was one of the ones that you saw early on, right?
Yeah, I saw it when I was 12, I think, and it just super terrified me. And I was and it kind of like broke all these narrative rules that I didn't know you could do at the time. So,
Sure.
um, seeing that in a movie where I was like, oh, like the main character just died, and then you're following this other weirdo, and but like you're still with it, and it doesn't lose you. It was just totally amazing. But yeah, that one has always stuck with me for sure.
Sure. Okay. You know, and it's always kind of been a hot take as far as like, you know, I kind of grew up, I think, in the same scenario with my buddies being real into horror. And I've always, if not more, I've always liked a couple of the Phantasm sequels, if not more than the original. Is that a
I,
real bummer?
well, no, I mean, I know a lot of people like, Phantasm 2 more than the original. Phantasm for me, I think, is so brilliant, partially because of like how young Coscarelli was when he made that, because he was so much closer to like Mike's age than if I
Sure.
tried to make that movie where I'm, like a 35-year-old man trying to remember what it's like being, a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old or whatever.
Sure.
Um, he was like 18 or 19, and so like when you watch that, it feels so much like what it's like being scared when you're a kid, and it like
Hmm.
captures that feeling of being, a 13-year-old so
Sure.
well. And it's got some real alchemy in that movie.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I know as far as like that original movie it's really irreplaceable. But as far as kind of going back and rehashing some of the fun moments, I find a lot of times I'll watch like the second or even I'm trying to think of which one the one is where they have to like create the weapons and I can't get it. I think that's the third one.
I mean, they do a little bit of that in the second because he puts
Or
that
maybe okay, maybe
that
that's the second one.
shotgun together. But I mean,
Yeah,
it kind of
yeah,
becomes like a running theme with them because they I feel like they put something together in the third one, and then the fourth I haven't seen very much. I remember
yeah.
like the flashback stuff in that, which I really like. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's my feeling on the matter.
Okay, cool. So now you are the director and you were one of the writers on Beyond the Gates. So I had to ask if you and I, if we made up a board game, okay, and each player got to have their own their own game piece based on a horror movie. Any horror movie character, what would your piece be?
Wow. I don't know. Probably the Wolf Man. I mean, I think he's always great fun. Like, why? Who wouldn't want to be a hairy beast? That sounds like a good Saturday night.
Yeah, yeah, touche, touche. I like it. So now I'm familiar, with some of your horror origin story, kind of where it all the love came from. But you can dissect into that as well. But what continued the development for your interest? As you got a little bit older, did you get into things like figures? I know at one time you got a little bit you had like a comic book phase.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's just all sort of like the standard, you know, like suburban, like weirdo nerd story, where it was like I grew up, watching movies and, stuff like Unsolved Mysteries and, Batman the Animated Series and all these other things. And some of the, Unsolved Mysteries does feel kind of like a horror show, even though it isn't technically, but all the
Yeah.
like scary elements of those shows I always sort of gravitated toward them and liked those episodes the best. And then when I saw like my first real horror movie, which was, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, it completely traumatized me. And I was like, and I mean, it's weird because you watch it now and it's not really scary. It's like kind of the first where it's like going in that more comedic, like Rockstar Freddy direction.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, like as far as why it continued, I mean, it's like there's always like great horror to kind of uncover, but I mean, a lot of that kind of did extend into other genres, like I spent a lot of quarantine just like watching these, like 3 hour, like, kind of like melodrama Western type movies like John Huston's The Unforgiven and,
Oh, yeah.
like,
Okay.
like The Searchers and stuff like that. So, it's horror was really fascinating because it's like it kind of gave me like branches into a lot of other, movies and it was just it's always like fun to throw on a horror movie with your friends.
Sure, sure. Yeah, and I mean, even, as far as like a movie like Jaws, with that being a horror movie and such, the action adventure, aspects of that movie, really kind of draw you into like, oh, maybe I want to go and check this out now and get a little bit more of that. But I mean, to me, Jaws is a perfect horror movie, but I think
Yeah,
that's universal.
yeah, you make one Jaws in your life, I think you're set.
Yeah, right, right. So now, in 2016, like I was mentioning, you released Beyond the Gates. Was there any particular movie or director that you could say that inspired you to take on directing?
um yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a hodgepodge of a bunch of different people. I mean, Stewart Gordon was a huge one. Rest in peace. Like
Right.
getting to meet him and kind of, have him become my friend and like seeing how, he broke down a lot of that stuff and like made it very practical was pretty huge for me. And then also, I mean, like Lucio Fulci and,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Tibor Takas, who did The Gate, Coscarelli, I mean, a lot of those guys, like, I didn't really, like want to, I didn't like grow up knowing like a director was like a job you could have. I was just like, oh, I like the person who makes the story, like that was
Sure.
what was always appealing to me. And then at some point moving out here, I started kind of seeing how everything worked. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, like maybe I should try that. And then, I did a bunch of shorts, and then a lot of those I've never put out, because a bunch of them are not very good. But
Yeah.
it was just one of those things. Like I started kind of sharpening my teeth on that, and eventually it was just like everything just kind of finally fell into place. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the two big ones are probably Coscarelli and Stewart Gordon, I would say.
Okay, cool. Early on in the process of writing Beyond the Gates, were there certain bits or certain scenes that you were really excited for, whether it be, like a certain panning shot, or like, ooh, this kill is going to be so cool, this is how I want to do this? Like, did you visualize things early on, or was it kind of along the process?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, it's like I kind of don't know how you couldn't, because it's
Right.
like whenever you're writing something, like you're seeing something in your head,
Sure.
however clear or opaque it is. And for me, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I really liked, or was looking forward to shooting, was just kind of like the surprise gore stuff, like, because I did want a lot of the movie to kind of like misdirect you and make you think it would be more of like a haunted house type of thing, and very like subtle. And then I, wanted to just like blow some guy's head up and have it just be really surprising.
Right.
So, I mean, stuff like that. And then, I mean, weirdly, probably my favorite stuff in it at this point is like the black and white TV stuff with them, talking to Barbara on the screen. Like, that's kind of my favorite stuff at this point. But I don't know. It's just it's weird. It's like time really kind of changes your relationship to movies, and it's always fascinating.
Sure. Okay. And as early on too, because you didn't go to film school, right?
No.
Okay. So how
Mercifully.
was the approach? How was the approach to going into this? I mean, I'm sure there was a little bit of a overwhelming feeling, early on, as far as how the hell am I going to get this thing to complete, or did you just dive right in and get it
Well,
done?
I mean, it doesn't totally work like that, because I mean, for me, like the way I like, for anyone who's listening to this, like if you want to get a movie made, you have to like just break it down into these achievable tasks, and there's this director, Shane Carruth, that I remember, who did this movie called Primer, and it was, $5,000. And I remember being like, I'm like, okay, so like it just seems like you can make a movie on any budget, and I mean, Beyond the Gates was significantly more than $5,000. But basically, like, the approach was, okay, I'm going to write the script, and with Steve, my co-writer, and then at that point it was just like, okay, just get incremental amounts of financing from everyone, and it was like, I didn't have like one person who just like was like, oh, you seem cool, here's a check for your movie, or like, oh, I liked your short, or whatever. It's literally like, you have to have like some serious business acumen to convince people to give them, or to give you their money. And
Sure.
so it just became a thing where I was like, okay, I'm gonna get, $5,000 from this guy, or like 10 grand from this person here, or like this guy's like a rich poker player, maybe I can get 20 grand out of him. And and it just kind of became like a thing where I learned about film financing, and sort of did that. And then, like, once the money was there, it became like, okay, well, how do I actually do this?
Sure.
And it was like, I, hired my effects team, Josh and Sierra Russell, and they're absolutely amazing. And they've gone on to do some great work. They did The Ritual, the Dave Bruckner movie, and I think they're maybe doing the
Okay.
new Hellraiser, which maybe I'm not supposed to say that, but whatever. And yeah, so and it just became like a thing where it's like, okay, what's the task today? It's like, find the location for the video store, or find, like the spooky shop Jesse Merlin's working in, or and so all of that became a thing. And then putting the cast together, which, like, that all came together like pretty late in the game. You know, Chase came on. I think like Bria, even actually Bria almost like couldn't do it because she was shooting another movie. But I feel like Bria and Chase were kind of like the first two that jumped into it. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's all this series of like little goalposts you kind of have to hit, and it's never like, oh, I just have to do everything at once. Like you just have to like put your little tasks down and get those completed as best you can.
Okay. And you know, I mean, I just thought it was something a little bit different as far as most people, you know, you see that they go to film school or they had this background with this and this. And it was, you know, kind of a refreshing take on seeing somebody that was like, I'm just going to get it done and we're going to, you know, get it figured out. And it was successful. It was an awesome movie. So,
Oh, thanks. Yeah, well, I mean, it's weird too because it's like I don't know why they don't teach you like any sort of like business stuff
right.
in film school, you know. And it's like I've read, you know, dozens of books on, you know, writing and directing and, you know, all sorts of other filmmaking aspects, but it's like it's very rare that they teach you like how to get someone's money, which is really the main thing you have to do in order to like make a movie.
Right.
And it is like the absolute hardest thing because like literally every director I've talked to, you know, I mean, from like people, you know, as big as like James Gunn, you know, it's like, I remember he had a movie with like Paul Rudd, Adam Scott, and I can't remember who the other person was, but was like a comedy, and you know, I think he needed like $10 million and couldn't get it, and I was just like, you know, I mean, this is like pre Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm sure if he
Yeah,
wanted to
right.
make that movie now, he'd have no problem. But
Right.
at the time, I was just like, wow, you like wrote this huge like Dawn of the Dead movie, and you know, had a bunch of successes, and you just kind of, it's just every director at every level just kind of has that, and they're basically like, they're kind of like janitors. It's very weird. It's like you're just sort of like cleaning up these messes and just trying to like put things in order and see, you know, make it as presentable as possible. But you kind of can't control the mess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Have half a semester in film school be, you know, just a little bit of janitor work.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it wouldn't be a bad idea, you know.
So now, as far as the score in the movie, that's definitely one thing that immediately stuck out. And forgive me if I'm saying this wrong, but Wojciech Chwelski, is that correct?
Very close. Golzewski.
Golzewski. Oh, okay.
But
So he supplied the score. Were there any references or examples that you gave that you're like, this is kind of what I'm going for?
oh yeah, totally. I mean, it was, you know, I mean, the initial cut was like loaded with a lot of tent music that was,
Hmm.
you know, similar, like a similar sort of flavor. Like we had, you know, some music from House by the Cemetery in there. Like I think we might have used some music from Psycho 2 and a few other things. But the big deal with him was, you know, I wanted there to be kind of like an old school electronic, not necessarily like the, you know, like the like the synth thing.
Right.
Everyone is using that, and you know, I mean, that's always fun. But you know, the thing that really sold me on it was he wanted to use the SID, which is like it's like the music instrument that they use for the Commodore 64, and
Yeah.
like I love Commodore 64 music, so like that was kind of the idea to, you know, bridge in some of the like VCR game world stuff, and I was like, oh, that's perfect. So that was like an element that kind of crept in there, but you know, I mean, it was all the sort of like the hits, like, you know, Jerry Goldsmith and Walter Rosati and you know, Goblin and just you name it.
Yeah, sure. Okay. What is something that you could say that you're going to take away from the experience of filming Beyond the Gates? You know, something that you learn from the process that you'll take on to your next projects.
Oh man, there's a
Everything.
yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I think the big thing is it's like unless someone has a better idea than you, do not let them talk you out of it. Because there were only like a couple instances of that where I was like, oh, maybe I'll do that. And there were things I always like knew in my gut I should have maybe fought a little harder for, and I didn't, and so that was a thing where I was like, oh, like other people don't necessarily know the best thing to do, like I my head is wired where I always just sort of think I'm an idiot, and then I'm like, well, this person must be smarter than me. So that kind of goes that goes into like a whole other area of my psychology that I'll spare your listeners from. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just fight for what is right, no matter how much of a pain and how tired you are and what have you.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Now, with somebody called you Hatless Jackson.
Yeah, that's Vaughn or Wayne.
Oh, okay. So now with all of so we'll go nowadays as far as with all of the opportunities of different types of merch, from characters to soundtracks to novelizations, what is something that you would absolutely love, be it from from vintage times or stuff that's prevalent right now? What is something that you would love merchandise wise to be based on one of your movies?
I mean, I know immediately, like we actually, I think we talked to a game developer about doing this, but we really wanted to do kind of like a Friday the 13th NES game for Beyond the Gates, and that was like just playing as Chase or Graham and have them going through the house and like collecting objects and having to like fight ghouls and like opening up the dimension, just doing that kind of like it's not an isometric viewpoint, but it's like it just do that whole like Friday the 13th NES thing for it. That would be awesome. That's
sick.
Absolutely my dream. After that, I don't really care. That's the only one I want.
What happened to the board game in the movie?
It's in my closet, so yeah.
Oh man,
I still have it. Sick. I mean, yeah, we didn't. I think we did talk about like maybe trying to do some iteration of that, like get Barbara back in to like film more of it, but it's like constructing an entire game is extremely difficult, as I'm sure you can imagine. So it just was like too much of a hassle.
Okay. Did you have just like an effects person whip the game together for you, or was that something where you tried contacting somebody to build it?
That was a whole other nightmare. I mean, that was basically like I actually had to like use 4 different people to try to get that, because I mean, like the thing is like anyone who ever watches the movie, they're just going to see it and they're like, oh, cool. It's like a nifty, like spooky looking board game. But it was like the first one, the idea was always to get like a spooky clue with kind of like an Edward Gorey sort of, vibe to it. And, the first one we got was like, okay. And it was purple, but it just wasn't really right. And then I had another artist do one that was just like horrendous. It was like bright orange, and it just looked like it looked like Life or like one of those games where it just like didn't fit at all.
Was that a friend where you had to break it to him? You're like,
I mean, he was like someone who worked on one of Barbara's movies, and she suggested him, and then he ended up like passing away, which is too bad, but that's a whole other story. So he that didn't work with him. I moved on to I think I asked like my girlfriend at the time to do one, and she was like a professional graphic designer, and she has like a big like ad agency career, but like hers looked like too like Milton Bradley. Like it just looked like something like it was just like not totally right. And I'm like, I needed this to just be like weird in this specific way. And then I eventually got my buddy Brendan with, who's like a video game designer for Blizzard and Activision and all these other companies to do it, and he, completely nailed it. And he also like helped design the poster for the movie. He did about 70% of the work on that before Mark Schoenbach did the rest. But
Okay.
yeah, so it was just like a ton of trial and error, and just it was a real grind.
Okay. All right. So now, on top of that, we're talking plenty of Beyond the Gates, but with all of this starting to clear up, you've got some other projects, and I mean, you've got a couple of things that are popping up. Without revealing too much, do you have anything that you're kind of setting your sights on?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's like three things right now, which, like, the way everything works is, it's like, who knows which, if any of those will move ahead.
Right.
I mean, one of them, we're waiting for like a yes or no from someone, and if they okay that'll be my next movie, and that's like sort of like an erotic thriller, I guess. It's pretty weird, but it's
Okay.
like comedic.
Okay.
But that's kind of in the vein of like Vertigo and After Hours, I guess, is like the best way to
Oh, okay.
put
Is this
that.
like the '80s remake that you had mentioned?
No,
Oh.
no,
Oh.
no. This
Okay.
is like this is another thing, and then I'm working on like a doc with this Oscar-winning producer that's like based on a super popular TV show from the 90s that I'm sure everyone watched, and it's kind of like the dark history around that.
Oh, okay.
And that's, we're talking to like two different places about that and seeing if that's going to move ahead. And then the other one's like a remake of this 80s cult classic movie, which it's a post-apocalypse film, and people would probably know it. I'm not sure though.
Okay. All right. What happened to the whole Night After Halloween?
Oh, the day after
All
Halloween.
right. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. I mean, there's still a producer on it, and he moved companies, and so I think he was trying to set it up somewhere else. But I mean, it was like, we got paid some money for writing that, and it looks like that was going to go ahead. And then, like the deal took a really long time, and then, stuff like the company's sort of like modus operandi shifted. And, I mean, it's like there's so many of these reasons why like movies never end up getting made, just because of stuff
Right.
like that, where it's like you have very little sort of control over like what other people are doing on it, or like where their taste will land like the following week, or there's a lot of that. I would still love to make that movie. I mean, I think it was I think it'd be really fun. And I mean, I still talk to like Steve Scarlotta pretty much every day. He's
Okay.
one of my closest friends. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, who knows? It might happen at some point.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was a really, really cool idea. So, and it's funny that you mentioned the things that are out there right now, because those were all completely different than the things I heard of. So, I mean, that's sick. It's cool to hear.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it should be interesting. I mean, there's a weird thing where it's like kind of like the more you sort of like talk about this stuff ahead of time, it's like the more you kind of jinx it. So
Yeah. Right.
I get
Right.
like a little paranoid about that, but
Yeah. Okay. All right. So this show in particular is more geared toward the horror community because of my page, but I also dig into some as far as like the hardcore and heavy music community as well. So one post on your page that I noticed that I have to ask about is you and Mike Patton. What? Where did this come from, dude?
well, he's like my idol. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been totally obsessed with him since I was probably like 16. And I grew up listening to like Mr. Bungle and Phantom Moss
Yeah.
and Faith No More, and I've probably seen his different bands like way more than any live artist ever. You know, I mean, I can't believe that guy is not like the hugest like artist in like in the entire world because
It,
he's just a complete genius. But
it is amazing. Yeah.
yeah, I met him in Tempe. I went to a Tomahawk show, and I was hanging out beforehand with my friend at the time, this guy Ian, and like no one was around really. It was just like, oh, okay, like you know, like Dave Lombardo walked by, and
Hmm.
like King Buzzo, or not. Sorry, I'm thinking of Phantomas. It was like. Um, yeah, so it was Dave Lombardo was there, and then I think like Trevor Dunn maybe, or I don't know.
Hmm.
It's sort of hard to, or maybe it might have been like a Phantomas Tomahawk show. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But Patton was he like walked up, and we just started chatting, and you know I was like asking him like you know what music he was listening to, and then my friend took that photo of us. But he was awesome. He was super nice and really cool, and just like
Sweet.
a really sharp dude. He's like very into a lot of Italian composers, which is pretty great. But
Okay. Sweet.
yeah, no, he's awesome. I mean, he's like I've heard he's like a little insane when you get to like work with him, but you know that's kind of par for the course, I guess.
Yeah. Right. He's got a band right now with Dave Lombardo.
Yeah, well, I mean, Dave Lombardo is like now in Mr. Bungle too, which is
Oh, really?
crazy. Yeah, I saw them.
Damn.
I saw them like right before you know the world ended in February, but yeah, he went on tour with them, and it was pretty amazing.
Wow. Yeah, that's sick. That rules. I didn't know that. I knew that he had this new band, and then I knew Faith No More, but then his work that he did with the Dillinger Escape Plan was one of the things that still to this day is like one of my favorite things in heavy music ever.
I know. I sort of wish he'd like kept that as one of his side bands because I
I agree.
love that like little 4 track EP is so awesome. I've
It
listened to
is.
that so many times,
There
and
was there was a thing like rotating on the internet for a little while too that was a behind the scenes of him like recording with like the megaphone and doing all these different like voices how he was doing shit. Amazing. So cool.
oh yeah, no, well I mean that guy really digs deep to you know come up with like unique sounds, and
Right.
it's like you know I think he easily could have just stayed on the kind of like epic train back in the 90s, and you know all their other albums ended up sounding like that, and kind of gone like the sort of like Sugar Ray route, you know, and I'm sure they would have had like a vast fortune, but I mean it's like
Yeah.
he's just survived through so much. I mean it's like that's like he's been pretty relevant for about 30 years
Yeah.
or more at this point. So you got to give it up to the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Hats off for sure. All right. Well, this brings us to our finale segment, man. If you want, this is an opportunity as far as if you'd like to plug anything or let everybody know what you got going on now that this is about to all go back to normal, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I don't really have anything to plug at the moment. I guess just stay tuned, and you know, more will be revealed.
Our segment that I created just for you. It's called Jackson Knows It. All right. So I hear that you're a fan from late 60s to the 80s horror movies, and I've picked out 5 movies, and I'd like to see what your take is on them.
Let's do it.
All right. So first and foremost, we have 1971. This is a Severn Films release called Blood on Satan's Claw. Have you seen this?
Oh, you know, I've heard of it. I don't know if I. Is there another title for it?
I'm not sure, honestly. My wife picked this up for me, and I'd never heard of it before then, and it's one of my favorite movies
Oh
ever.
wow.
It is
I,
so fucking wild.
I gotta
I
check
try
it
not to swear
out.
on here, but it is so good.
Yeah, no, I've had a few of those where it's like I would watch them, and you know a lot of these like the VHS releases, which is like how I discovered a bunch of those. Like they would come out under different titles. Like there's this one called Beast with a Gun, but then they changed it to
Oh yeah,
like Mad Dog Killer,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
it's like there's a bunch of those. But I've heard of that. I don't think I've seen it. So I will add that to my list of shame.
If you get an opportunity, yeah. So basically, it's just this little village, and somebody's out in their farm digging, and they uncover basically the body of Satan. It's a skeleton, and just
Oh, cool.
hell ensues from there. But it's kind of an older, real folky early '70s feel, and there's lots of crazy imagery in it. So it's awesome. I would for sure recommend it.
I'll grab it.
All right. So for the second one, this is 1976. This is a Scream Factory. We have
Oh yeah.
the town that dreaded sundown.
Yeah, that's I mean that's a classic. Chuck B. Pierce. He always reliable. He also did this great movie called The Evictors, which truthfully, I kind
That's on
of.
here.
Oh yeah, so
Yeah.
I actually like that one a little bit better than The Town That Dreaded Sundown. But Town That Dreaded Sundown's like a really cool proto slasher movie, and you gotta love Andrew Prine being in there. I think he's like a terrific underrated actor. But yeah, it's great. Who doesn't love that movie?
Yeah, very fun, very fun. I love that one. So now this is a special edition. This is a CMV, laser vision, if you will. We have Humongous,
Oh, yeah,
1982.
yeah.
You ever seen that one?
Humongous. I don't think I have. I remember the box for it, but that's one. It's like I don't think I got around to checking it out.
It
It's
had
like
the baby sitting in the carriage or something, like the huge.
Oh wait, you know what? I own this movie.
Did
Actually, yeah. It's like is there like a leg like sticking out
Yeah.
of the
You know,
or it's like there's like a baby in like a crib or something,
yeah.
right?
Actually, that might be a different movie. I might be messing that up. I think that movie is called The Baby, and there's a leg
Oh, that
hanging
yeah.
out of the carriage.
Yeah, I was
Shit.
thinking of the baby. Never
Yeah,
mind.
me too.
Yeah, so I don't think I have seen Humongous.
Oh, okay. It's one of those ones where kind of in the time of all the slashers and different things, basically these kids go off to this island where this creature has been festering for years, and basically they get caught off, and one by one are getting lost.
Oh, right on. I'll check
It's
it out.
pretty sweet. So this one is it's a very shitty edition, but it's a very cool anthology movie in 1987, movie called Chillers.
Chillers. Wow. It's
Yeah.
like it's a weird it's a very odd font. I'm guessing that's a more recent
It was
like
out in
cover.
2004. It's a Troma. So Troma for a little while they were doing these things where it was like a 5 or 6 pack of DVDs, and they would come in these like real thin, flimsy.
Oh yeah.
But it's the only release that I can find on DVD, and it's really really good if you get the opportunity to check it out.
How's the transfer on it?
It's shaky.
Yeah.
At
That's
best,
all right.
it's not the highest quality thing by any means, but
Yeah.
a Blu-ray transfer would be awesome on it.
It adds to the charm.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So now, last but not least, this is 1989's Scream Factory. Or this isn't Scream Factory. I'm sorry, Death Spa.
Oh
You ever-
yeah.
You ever watch this one?
I don't think I have. I mean, it's like the one I remember is like the Lucio Fulci Murder Rock. That's sort of like the
Oh,
aerobics
yeah.
one,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like that's kind of the only like gym themed horror movie I remember watching. I mean, Death Spa. Who put that out?
This was from Gorgon Video.
Oh, weird. Okay. Yeah, because I know a lot of like I think like Jim Branscombe is like a huge fan of that movie, and I've heard a lot of great stuff about it. I gotta watch it. It's just it's like that the thing I love is like if there were zero new movies made for like the rest of time, you'd still never run out of stuff to discover, which is
It's
so
nuts.
cool.
It is insane, yeah. Like if you follow Vinegar Syndrome or you follow Severn or even Scream Factory, they'll release some of the stuff, and like that Blood on Satan's Claw. I had never even heard of that movie, and it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Now there's a few of those too that they did some really impressive like rediscoveries on. Like the one I saw recently that made a big impression on me was this movie called The Strangeness. I don't know if you've seen that, but
Strangeness. Trying to
it's
think.
like it's like Code Red put it out. You go on IMDb and there's probably like 11 ratings for it. I mean, it's like absolutely no one's watched this movie.
Okay.
But
Is there
it's
like
like
a demon on the cover or something?
no. Well, it's sort of. I mean, it's got it's like it takes place in a mine, and it's like people are getting killed in it, and they kind of square off against this monster. But
Damn, that sounds
it's
awesome.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I chose Death Spa because it was one of those movies, one of my earlier times remembering at Blockbuster. I always saw this cover and it was on VHS and just time after time it was in the like 50 cent, rack or whatever, but it was
Oh
one of those
yeah.
ones where and for the longest time if you went to go get it on DVD, it was over $100. And then they released this Blu-ray and that was, like this is even kind of a rare gem still, but yeah, if it goes online or if it goes on like Amazon Prime, it's definitely one to watch.
Yeah. No, I'll scope out all those. They all sound cool.
Sick. All right, man. Well, this is the end. I really really appreciate all your time, dude. It's been so fun, and I look forward to seeing your work therefore.
Oh, awesome. Well, yeah. Thank you for having me. It was great fun chatting with you, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
All right, buddy. You too. Take care, everybody.
Later
This
on.
is Jackson Stewart, Lo-Fi Horror Guy. We're out of here. Take care. Bye bye.
He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi, a horror guy. Yeah.